Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Iron and this is Iron's Tech. Today I wanted to talk about this computer and the three different setups I use when I use this. This of course is my M1 MacBook Air. I've had this for nearly 3 years. I love this computer, it has been fantastic. I would recommend it to anyone looking for a light but very snappy computer to do all of your basic computing things. In fact, it can do some things beyond your basic computing things. It's reasonably good at video editing. You can play some games on it. It's just a very good all-round computer. So anyway, back to the point of the video. 3 basic setups for my M1 MacBook Air. I'd like to say before I go any further, I currently have a bit of a cold and my voice is a bit croaky, so I apologize for that. The first setup obviously is just like this. It's just the MacBook with nothing else. I use my MacBook like this honestly most of the time. If I'm outside of the house, if I'm going to a coffee shop or to work, or even just sitting on the bed, on the sofa, on my table, which it is right now, I generally don't need to plug it in. The battery lasts a very long time. The battery life is still very good on this computer. Even after nearly 3 years, I'm still getting about 10 hours out of this, which is fantastic. It's more than a work day, no problem at all. So when I'm using my computer like this, obviously the trackpad and the keyboard are the main input. The trackpad is fantastic. It's world-leading trackpad. It's just really nice to use. It's glass top. It's so smooth, such a nice input. It's very good to use, and a lot of the time I prefer to use this than a mouse. Like video editing, that kind of thing. Even just navigating Google Drive, something like that. The trackpad is just so nice to use because you have the multi-gesture support with the 2 fingers and the 3-finger gestures. It's just really convenient and really good. The keyboard, I made a whole separate video about keyboards. This keyboard is very good. I really like this keyboard. It has a really nice amount of feedback. It's got a nice amount of travel. It could do with maybe slightly more travel like the older Apple keyboards used to have, but it is very good. So this is the first setup I have for my MacBook Air, just as is. Obviously, like this, you will be using the built-in speakers, which I think again sound very good. They're very nice sounding speakers. They're nothing as good as on the MacBook Pros, but they definitely do the job for me. If I do want to hear anything a little bit more clearly or get a bit more bass in the sound, there's a headphone jack. I can plug in some headphones or use some Bluetooth headphones with no issues whatsoever. Then, of course, the display. This display is still, in my opinion, more than enough for a computer like this. It's very good. It's obviously not as good as the newer MacBook Air, nor the Pros, but it's great. I mean, it's a Retina display. It's got 400 nits of brightness, which for me, in almost any situation, has been bright enough. It's very clear. The colors are very good. I do not have any issues with this display whatsoever. Okay, so that basically wraps up the first setup I have for this MacBook. Let's have a look at setup number 2. All right, so here we have setup number 2, and for this second setup, obviously I have the laptop raised up quite a lot more, up to a much more natural height, so I can look straight forward at the display. I have an additional keyboard, and I also have a mouse this time. To raise up the computer, I've just used a Elecom laptop stand. You can get so many of these. If you just go onto Amazon and have a look, I'll put one on the screen now. Just a laptop raiser. It just picks it up off of the desk. It's so good for your neck and your back. It just makes everything at a much more sensible height, and it really does help with stiff neck, stiff back, all those kind of things. So I've used the laptop stand. I've got this old Apple keyboard, which I love. This is one of my favorite keyboards. The travel is so nice. It's so nice sound, nice and clicky-clacky, not too loud, not too quiet. It's really nice feel keyboard. It reminds me so much of the keyboard on the older MacBooks. On my 2012 MacBook Air, the keyboard feels really similar. Has the nice, even the direction keys, it's just really nice feeling keyboard, really good. So I've got my keyboard, Bluetooth keyboard, and then I have a Bluetooth mouse. This is my Logi mouse. This is a silent click mouse. And it's nice to use later in the evening if you don't want to bother other people. I've got really used to actually having a mouse like this. It reminds me of the trackpad. When you press the trackpad, the click's very, very quiet, and you can just kind of feel it rather than hear it. This mouse is the same. It's a Logi mouse. Again, I will put up on the screen now. So yeah, I have my Logi, and it's cool that if you can make that out, it's an M590. Apple keyboard, and the Razer. The reason I use this is if I'm using the computer for a longer period of time, I can relatively quickly set this up, and it's just nicer to use for long periods. Sometimes I honestly do miss having the trackpad because of the multi-gesture support, but the mouse does a good job. You know, the mouse is good enough. I've got the keyboard, which in my opinion is possibly slightly better than this keyboard. They're very, very close. I do really enjoy both these keyboards. But just in terms of looking after my health, my neck, my back, this is a much more sensible setup for long periods of work. And when I'm at home, this is the more common setup for me. Okay, so let's have a look at setup number 3. Okay, so my third setup is what you can see here. I did briefly show this in another video I made. I have my little portable wooden desk here that I picked up from a furniture shop in Japan. I honestly forget exactly where I got this from, but it's a pretty cheap fold-up wooden desk. I've got my MacBook, obviously, in a little holder. I got this from a 100 yen shop. I mean, it's about $1, if that. It's supposed to hold books, but it holds MacBooks perfectly well. As you can see, it's pretty sturdy. It doesn't move around too much. It's not going to fall over unless I really hit it. It's pretty good. I've got a different mouse this time. I've got my bigger Logi mouse. It's the M705. Nice, sturdy, strong mouse. Really nice wheel on it. Good click. I love this mouse. It's really good. Let me just zoom the camera in a tiny bit. There we are. So, yeah, and again, it's a Logi M705 mouse. It's a really nice mouse. It's got a really nice wheel. Good click. This changes the wheel so it doesn't buzz when you spin it. I prefer it like this. Good click, extra buttons on the sides. It's a good, sturdy, strong mouse. The only downside is it's not Bluetooth. I have to use a little dongle thing, which I plug into my trusty RSH Tech dongle, let's call it, which I have here. So the dongle plugs into the MacBook. I have the mouse plugged into the dongle. I have my external portable SSD, again from Elecom. And then I have the HDMI running to the monitor. This is my trusty old LG monitor. This thing is a 1080p monitor from 2011. It's not amazing, but it does the job. If I want a bigger screen for doing lots of work, or I need a lot more space for multiple windows, you know, laying out things, if I want to do a big video edit where I need to see lots going on at the same time, I will use this bigger monitor. I have the same keyboard here as I had before. This is the Apple Bluetooth keyboard, and the same mouse pad as well. The monitor I've got attached by, this is a monitor arm. Again, you can get these things from all over the place. They're pretty straightforward. This one is another Elecom product. The monitor arm is an Elecom, it's DPA-SS08 and BK, which is the black color one. It's a very simple monitor arm. It doesn't have too much of a weight support. It holds up one monitor reasonably well. So I've used that. And that is my more complicated setup for if I really want to do a lot of work, or maybe play a game on a bigger screen, if I want to do some more serious editing, or I need to just plug a load of things into my MacBook. This is the setup I'll use. It's very comfortable for a long period of time. Let me zoom back out again. It's very comfortable for a longer period of time, and it allows me to get a lot more done without moving around, without having to squint or hunch over a laptop screen. I can have my monitor raised up nice and high. It's a comfortable position, which again is good for my neck, good for my back, and that kind of thing. Okay, so that is setup number 3 that I have. So those were my 3 setups for my M1 MacBook Air. Just a quick recap, it was the MacBook by itself. I had the MacBook on the stand with the added mouse and keyboard. And then I had the more full setup, shall we say, with the mouse, the keyboard, the monitor arm, and the bigger monitor by itself. Something I've realized I didn't mention is if I want to use a secondary screen, I don't generally use a secondary monitor. I don't find I need to, especially with the larger screen. I can divide my windows up on there. But if I did, I can use my iPad mini. I have made a separate video on this iPad mini, which has actually been very popular. It still works very well for what it is. It's a Mini 4, and I can use this as an external display if I really wanted to, using YAM display application. And it works very well. It's very good as a secondary monitor. I tend to plug it in via the Lightning port rather than use the Wi-Fi version. It's just a bit smoother. I find that it's just a more stable connection and it's a smoother experience overall. If I'm on my desk with my bigger monitor, I can open up the MacBook and have the MacBook display as the second monitor if I do need to do that. So yeah, this has been my video about the 3 different setups I have for my M1 MacBook Air, which still is a fantastic computer approaching 3 years later. Thank you for watching. My name is Iron, and this has been Iron's Tech. Thank you again.